I'm okay.
And I have a light that I can clip onto your. Okay. I really need to run to the bathroom. I need to do a mic test. Hi. Let's do a mic test for
Hey y'all.
Jenna.
Test, test, test.
You sound great. Alan?
Hello, everybody. How y'all doing?
Hello.
Fantastic. Who
Good.
else just joined? Charlton. I don't see Charlton.
Alan, what is the proper pronunciation of your name?
Thank you for asking. So, if you think of the two words join C, just put a B instead of the J. Boyne Join
Bonsi.
C. Boyne C.
Yeah,
Yep.
like BW, like Wada.
There we go. There we go. My coaches in college, they did a terrible job of pronouncing my last name. So you were great. You were great there.
Charlton Allen, let's do a mic test on you, please.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
You sound fantastic. All right. Judge Michael, when you're ready, let's do a mic test on you, please.
You're missing candidates just tuned in, so you've got all your candidates. Charlton is the one that's missing. Okay. That was all that you said. I thought you said.
So, Priscilla, should we, so it sounds like Beth, Donna, Michael, and Charlton will be first. And then at 3:50, we have Jonah and Alan. Should we ask them to mute their video during this time? Okay. Understood. Oh, we've got Penny. Penny Rich is here, so Mark, I think Mark is the only one we don't have, Mark Chilton. Hi Penny, can we do a mic test with you while we have you here? And we haven't heard from Michael yet either.
Hi, can you hear me?
We hear you great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
So who's Sarah O'Brien? She's not on my list.
Sarah is my campaign manager.
Okay, I'll admit her, but I'll hide her. Why not? She wants to watch it. You didn't share the video yet, right? Okay. Understood. Sarah. Thanks, Sarah. So I haven't heard from Michael stating yet. Have you done a mic test for you?
I'm here. I'm
Okay.
here.
I don't see you.
I don't see Jonah.
Uh-oh.
Your video's off. Let's see if we can get it turned on.
All right, I'll work on that too.
I just sent you a request. It should take.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, that's three.
I-
Where do we start? Kurt, where do we start?
Hey, Priscilla.
Sorry about that. Am I there now? Wonderful.
All right, please, let's do one more mic check. I'm the moderator. Just put your thumb up if you can hear me. Well, those that are muted can't. Those that are not muted, put your thumb up. Okay. Judge Stroud, can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
okay, good.
Well, when they're muted, they can still hear you, you can't hear them. Okay, got it, all right, I'll be quiet. I'm gonna make a change to our Wi-Fi network,
All right.
may mess everybody up.
Mr. Allen, will you please unmute? Please unmute. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Curtis McLaughlin, and I am honored to serve as moderator for this afternoon's forum. Today we have with us two Republican candidates each for two contested primary races for North Carolina Court of Appeals seats, two Democratic candidates each for the North Carolina House of Representatives and for Orange County Register of Deeds. It's important that you understand that there are more individuals on the two primary ballots, but due to lack of time, we have excluded those candidates who don't appear on their party's ballot. This forum is a hybrid, a live audience, and Zoomed candidates. It is also being recorded for those residents unable to attend. Wish us well electronically. Our appreciation goes out to the many at Carol Woods who have worked tirelessly over the years to make these events possible, and to Priscilla Gill, Chair of the Community Relations Committee, Alice Gordon, Fred Schrader, and the other current members of the committee for making these forums possible on short notice, and the many residents who have submitted questions. We also want to thank Nikki Cooper, Carol Woods' Vice President for Technology and Compliance, and her staff for their invaluable help in bringing this about. I have the following instructions for both the audience and the candidates. Audience, we welcome you and hope that you all understand that to be in the audience, you must be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. If you are not fully vaccinated, I must sadly ask you to leave. If you are a guest, you must fill out the vaccine attestation form at the table by the entrance door. I would also ask that you not applaud or otherwise respond to any statement or position taken by a candidate. Kindly silence your cell phones, please, or anything else electronic. Audience questions have been solicited beforehand and selected, so there will not be an opportunity for additional live questions from the audience. We welcome all the candidates. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
The format for this afternoon is each of the candidates will be called on, starting in the order you appear on the ballot, to give a 3-minute introduction of yourself. For successive questions, we will reverse the order. Following those introductory statements, you will have 2 moderated questions. You will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. Following those responses, we will have additional questions submitted previously by residents of Carroll Woods. You'll have 1 minute each to answer each resident question. At the end of those responses, I will call on you for a 2-minute closing statement. Paul Lindsay will serve as our timer today and will display a yellow card when you have 30 seconds remaining and a red card when your time is up. Please respect those times as our schedule is tight. Now we will start with Republican candidates for the North Carolina Court of Appeals. For seat 9, Judges Beth Freshwater Smith and Donna Stroud. And for seat 11, Judge Michael Standing and Mr. Charlton Allen. You each have 3 minutes for your introductory remarks. Please include in your remarks both your qualifications for office and the reasons we should vote for you. We'll start with Judge Smith. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself to the ladies and gentlemen at Carroll Woods. My name is Beth Freshwater Smith. I am currently a district court judge in Nash, Edgecombe, and Wilson counties, and the Court of Appeals needs a judge with my experience. I have been a prosecutor for over 28 years, so I have 34 years of total experience in the trial courtrooms of North Carolina. The Court of Appeals is made up of 15 judges that hear cases in panels of 3. The majority of the cases that the court normally hears are criminal cases, and there are only 2 current judges that have prosecutorial experience. I have more than anyone else. We need law and order judges hearing our cases that affect the safety of our families and our welfare. I've tried thousands and thousands of cases, everything from capital murder, death cases, to traffic tickets. And as a district court judge, I make tough decisions every day. I'm the one that decides child custody, abuse, neglect, dependency, the setting of bonds, real estate issues, contract disputes. So I am used to making tough decisions, and I can do that. I believe the Constitution is the basis for our laws, and the laws are to be followed as written. We've seen what happens when the appellate courts legislate from the bench. Personal preference has no place in our judiciary. Unpredictable and inconsistent results are harmful to the public perception of our judicial system and society's notion of justice. I have a proven record of integrity. I'm a certified juvenile law judge. I was chosen one of 14 from across the United States to serve on the Elite Juvenile Prosecutors Board in Washington, D.C. I was a trusted liaison between the United States Attorney's Office and the District Attorney's Office for the prosecution of gun and drugs. I have taught at the Judicial College, the Conference of District Attorneys, colleges in North Carolina, as well as local law enforcement. I have co-authored manuals with the Conference of District Attorneys, one on sexual assault, the other on child abuse. Both are used across the state by prosecutors. We need judges that don't just have academic knowledge, but common sense and are caring. Thank you so much for letting me introduce myself to you today, and I look forward to speaking with you again at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Stroud, 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you so much. I am Donna Stroud. I currently serve as Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals. Just a little bit about my background. I was born and raised in Kinston, North Carolina. Decided I wanted to be an attorney in third grade. Not really sure why, because I had never met any attorneys. No one in my family previously had gone to college. But I decided I wanted to do that. Went to Campbell University for pre-law and government. Finished that in 3 years because it's cheaper that way. Went to law school, graduated first in my class, and then I went out into practice for 16 years, did a wide variety of things, civil, criminal. We represented towns. We did superior court litigation, did family law, wide variety of things in many counties of North Carolina. And that's important because the Court of Appeals hears appeals from the entire state in all types of cases. Since 2006, I have served on the Court of Appeals. So I've been here for 15 years. I have a proven track record on the court as I've been writing opinions for the court because in all of our cases, we write an opinion that's published, and those are all available for you to read on nccourts.org. I've written over 1,200 opinions while I've been here on all types of cases, of course, civil and criminal and everything else that we hear. And so, I have that proven track record on all of these cases. In addition, of course, I now serve as Chief Judge of the court since January of 2021. Chief Justice Newby appointed me as Chief Judge, so I've been doing that since then, in addition to my duties as a judge deciding cases. So I don't have a lot of time to talk about that in 3 minutes, but I would simply note that my experience here obviously has proven my ability to do this. I also have an advanced degree in judicial studies from Duke Law School, and I teach as an adjunct professor at Campbell Judicial Process. I've been teaching there since 2008. I frequently teach district court judges, superior court judges, attorneys, in various different types of programs. Have been doing that for many years. Actually, I'll be teaching the district court judges this summer in their summer conference about order drafting. In contrast to my opponent has no appellate experience whatsoever. I have a 15-year track record on this court. And so I would simply ask anyone who wants to evaluate the candidates to look at that track record of my work on the court as a constitutional conservative judge. And as I said, there's a lot more that as Chief Judge I have done, but I don't have time to talk about all that in 3 minutes, which is about right about now. So thank you so much for having this forum.
Thank you, Judge Stroud. Now we turn to seat 11. Judge Stading, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you so very much to the organizers, viewers. I really appreciate this. I'm just delighted to be on here with you today. And you can call me Standing, don't care. Just recognize it on the ballot. It is the first name listed for seat 11 on the North Carolina Court of Appeals. I currently sit as a district court judge, was elected in 2018 for that role, and I've got to do all kinds of things with that. Before I get into my professional career, though, I do want to tell y'all what I'm most proud of, and that's my beautiful wife, Jenny, who I met in high school. We married when I was in law school, and my 3 children, Jack, Julia, and Ike, they're the light in my life. But second to that, I do really enjoy my professional career, which has been dedicated to public service. As a district court judge, I get to sit and hear criminal cases, civil cases, family cases. Today, I had 2 separate courtrooms. I had drug treatment court this morning, and that's something where I'm very fortunate because a lot of times court is kind of a somber place. That is a very, very happy, productive courtroom where we try to help folks out and get them to a better place in life, and it is incredibly successful, and I feel very fortunate to take part in that process. It's a joyful place. And in the afternoon, I was in kind of a different situation, so we have to pivot around. It was domestic violence court. It was a civil courtroom where we handle, those more somber cases. They're very serious, and we need folks with experience to handle those things, folks with judicial experience to handle those things. There's just some things that's the only way you learn it. And then when you go to the second highest court in the land, it's great to have somebody there who has judicial experience and can do those things because they've seen the trial court level. they understand what's going on. It's not just abstract words. It's situations where you've been in the moment. I haven't been a judge forever though. Before that, I was, I'm still a member of the United States Air Force. I'm a reservist. I do legal work for them. I'm charged with upholding good order and discipline. I'm a JAG officer. And just a couple weeks ago, I was getting to serve as a preliminary hearing officer. That's a judicial role. And then we gave legal assistance to veterans of several branches in our geographical area. I'm very honored to do that. I love that job. I absolutely love it. We have a couple JAGs on the Court of Appeals. I would like to join them there. I don't think there's any Air Force, but I'd love to join them there. I've also been a prosecutor, and I've had my own business. I ran a law firm that I stepped aside from that to run for judge and turned down the money for public service. But as a part of that, I was able to represent the Fraternal Order of Police. So I got to help out law enforcement officers when they needed an attorney at a reduced rate. And I'm just honored to be here with y'all today and excited to answer any questions that are forthcoming. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now the fourth participant, Mr. Allen, you also have 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir, and thank you to all the residents of Carroll Woods and other guests and the other panelists today. It's my pleasure to talk about my campaign. I'm Charlton Allen. I'm running for North Carolina Court of Appeals, seat 11. I have served as the chairman of the North Carolina Industrial Commission for nearly 3 years, and also I served as a commissioner for nearly 7 years. And on top of that, I've been a licensed attorney for 25 years, and I'm currently a certified mediator. And a little bit about the Industrial Commission, for those of you who are not aware, the Industrial Commission is the tribunal that hears workers' compensation matters, but our jurisdiction is not limited to that. Also state tort claims, eugenics, program compensation matters, law enforcement death claims. So very important claims are vested in the jurisdiction of the Industrial Commission. And as it stands right now, there is no one on the Court of Appeals with the wealth of experience that I would bring to the table in hearing those cases, which are a substantial part of the appellate court's docket. I have, as chairman of the commission, we had statewide jurisdiction. I'm the only candidate in this race who has served as the head of a state agency. We always ran a surplus and saved the taxpayers millions of dollars in total. And on top of that, during my leadership as chairman of the commission, workers' compensation rates went down by nearly double digits each year. In the final year, full year, I was chairman of the commission, workers' compensation rates in the state went down 17.2%. And there are a lot of reasons for that decrease, but the main reason was leadership in standing up to some of the special interest groups, which were trying to raise medical fees on our fee schedule to make more money for themselves. And as a consequence, those costs would have been passed on to small businesses in this state. And I stood against that, fought that out in court, and we were able to prevail when everything was said and done. Also, as a leader of the Industrial Commission, it was my pleasure to institute, and one of my proudest professional achievements, a comprehensive reduction in opioid usage in workers' compensation cases. Before I took over and took on that task, everybody was saying there's no way you could bring everybody to the table to get this done, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, the insurance companies and injured workers advocates. And I was able to bring everyone to the table, and we came up with a program that was successful and is saving lives today. I'm also married. My wife is a CPA partner with an accounting firm, and my daughter is 9 years old.
Time is up. Now we have the moderator questions. You will each have 1.5 minutes per question. The first is, what in your own personal background and upbringing do you consider most significant in shaping the person you are now who aspires to the Court of Appeals? Reversing the order, Mr. Allen.
First thing that comes to mind is when I was in between my junior and senior years of high school, I was, a student ambassador to the now former Soviet Union. That gives you an idea how old I am. That was back in 1988. And as a consequence, I was able to travel in the Soviet Union and see firsthand, and this was during the period of Gorbachev and Glasnost and Perestroika, and yet to see firsthand how oppressed that nation was, and to see firsthand just how fragile our freedom and liberty is here in America, which in my view is the greatest country on the face of the planet. We are blessed with liberties that people there in 1988 could only dream of. And, it was something to behold, particularly when we were in Lithuania and Vilnius, and there had been a festival that we attended. And the aftermath of the festival was that there was a demonstration for freedom. And unfortunately, the Soviet Red Army marched in and suppressed that freedom right before that festival and that protest right before our eyes. And we were escorted away from windows, and that, to me, showed me just how fragile freedom and liberty is.
Thank you. Now, Judge Stadding.
Yes, sir. I would say what would be most influential on that is my most recent professional experiences, and nothing long ago, but as you progress in your career, you have influences. Certainly being a judge now, that's given me an opportunity in a courtroom to see litigants, faces of human beings who come in front of me, and what they have in front of them is very real and so important to them at the moment. Their legal rights are just so important, and you got to have the right person up there listening to that, and taking everything into consideration and treating those people with respect. Whether you're talking about someone who's charged with something, whether you're talking about attorneys, could be prosecutors, defense attorneys, you gotta understand what's going on in the courtroom and have that real tangible experience and take that on. And anyways, that has been so influential to me, and being in all those different types of courtrooms. I mean, there's very few jobs in the law where you can touch all those subject matters, just so few. But being a district court judge, fortunately, is one of those. And I've just had a wealth of experience doing that. And that's been so influential, and thank you.
Thank you. Next, it would be Judge Stroud. You have 1.5 minutes.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes. We hear you well.
Okay, I can't hear you right now.
It's the same question. Just if you can keep going.
Everything's kind of gone dead. Can you?
What in your own personal background and upbringing do you consider most significant in shaping the person you are?
I cannot hear you right now. I hear the
Yes, all right. Judge, Judge
I
Smith,
understood. I couldn't understand the entire question.
Judge Smith?
Yes, sir. I hear you and I understood the question, so I'll go ahead and answer, and maybe Judge Stroud can come in a few minutes. I grew up in Morehead City, North Carolina, and as a child, I saw lawyers in the community as folks that were upstanding and did stuff to help folks. And so I actually wrote a paper in the 7th grade, and from that time on, I was determined to become a lawyer. I specifically wanted to be a trial attorney and thought that as a prosecutor, I could clean up the streets of North Carolina. After over 28 years doing that, I found that I could make a difference in the district courtroom. There are so many different types of cases that come before you there, and you have to really have a heart for the people. I do. I firmly believe in this country and have a great deal of respect and appreciation for the folks that came before us that created this country. And so I'm a public servant doing my part to continue our judicial system as it is. Thank you.
Well, I have one. Could you pick up Sprout next?
And could you possibly repeat the question? It was garbled and all I heard was personal background.
Yes. What is it in your personal background and upbringing that you consider most significant in shaping the person you are now who aspires to the Court of Appeals?
Okay, thank you. I figured it was something like that, but I want to hear part of it was I couldn't hear a good bit of that, and I hope you can hear me. As I said before, I think I decided I wanted to be an attorney in third grade, and then focused on that throughout my entire career. And when I got to law school, fortunately, it turned out that I really love it. I love the law. It is fascinating to me. Every case is like it's just a new challenge, and they're all incredibly interesting. They're all incredibly important. In a wide variety of things when I was first in practice, in a wide variety of areas, and then focused down more law in latter years. I really enjoyed family law, and I also served in district court as a district court judge, as some of our other people on this panel have. I was a district court judge in Wake County. And so obviously Wake County is a very busy county. I was one of the family court judges, but we also serve in all of the other courtrooms. And I've always found it fascinating, but also it is, every single case is important. And I think my background in having worked with people, worked with towns, worked with businesses, worked with a wide variety of people, and a wide variety of cases, both in the courtroom, representing the judge, is something that makes me very qualified for this position, which I've been doing for 15 years.
Judge Stroud, your time is up on that question, but I'd like you to stay with us for the next one now that we've got your face and mouth synced. What are the most important issues you anticipate coming before the new North Carolina Court of Appeals during your time in office? Again, 1.5 minutes. Okay, let's move on to we're having can you hear me now? No, we can't.
Yeah, it was all garbled. All I heard was important issues.
Right, yeah, you're breaking up. What are the most important issues you anticipate coming before the Court of Appeals during your time in office?
Okay. All right. That's always a tricky question because, of course, we hear cases of all sorts. About right now, 30-some% of our cases are criminal. The rest are civil. We hear, obviously, family law, things from all sorts of things. So when you say most important issues, I first always say that the most important issue, every case is the most important case to the litigants in that case. And it is the most important case when we're working on it. So I guess the question is, how do you define important? And also, of course, we can't state how we would rule on any particular case. I can say that I have ruled on a lot of those issues that people consider important, such as the constitutional amendment regarding voter ID and the tax cap, where, that's now pending in the Supreme Court. That's an issue that's very important. And, I've written an opinion on that, so that is out there. And I've written opinions on many other important issues. One right now is obviously parental rights, Second Amendment rights, all of those things, I've actually written cases on, so they're out there for your review. But again, we can't comment on the particular issues and how we would rule on them. All I can say is that in all of those issues, I will give them full and fair consideration. I will rule in accord with the Constitution and the law, and I will do my best to write an opinion that is clear and that explains the rationale of the court to the parties, to the public, to the people involved in the case, that will provide guidance
Thank
in
you.
the future.
Thank you. Judge Smith, you have one and a
Would you
half
please,
minutes.
would you please repeat the question?
Surely. What
Thank
are the
you.
most important issues you anticipate coming before the North Carolina Court of Appeals during your time in office?
Thank you, sir. The Court of Appeals hears the majority of the appellate cases, and but for COVID, 80% of the cases are criminal cases that are heard by the Court of Appeals, which is why I think it is so imperative to have judges that are law and order judges that have a very, very, very good understanding of the criminal law, which I certainly do, having been a trial attorney for over 34 years. Now, due to COVID, a lot of trials were not held, and obviously in the next coming years, we're going to have a lot of cases that will probably be coming before us involving criminal courts. As a district court judge, I've handled every other type of case, so I'm well versed. And the amendments are not theory to me. I have lived it. I have been in the courtroom for the last 34 years. I haven't just been behind a desk. I know what's going on. I care. And I am experienced. And that's what the Court of Appeals needs now.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, 1.5 minutes.
Again, to echo what Chief Judge Stroud said, that we have to dance somewhat of a pirouette when we are answering a question about these type of things. So I'm going to do the best I can with that and speak more in general. I would say that the most important thing that will be faced by all of our appellate courts in the coming years is following the law as written. And by that, I mean, I'm a textualist. I look at the text of the actual statute or the Constitution and using the language, the plain language that's before me, that's how I reason a decision in a case. That's what I did at the Industrial Commission. My opinions are all out there for nearly 7 years worth of work, hundreds of them, issued a lot of orders, probably well over 1,000 orders. And some of those are available online. Unfortunately, not all of them are because of the legacy system that's in place at the commission. But, following the law as written and not ruling to show favor or having any fear from any of the parties before you, but just issuing well-reasoned decisions based upon the law and no exemptions from the law that are not a part of the statute. And, it's a tragedy in my mind when special interest groups, favored individuals, and even sometimes a judge themselves or a potential judge asks to be exempted from the law. That can't happen and still uphold the bulwark of integrity of our judicial system.
Thank you. Judge Stading.
Okay, yeah. So I'm sorry. For me, this is kind of easy. It's and it won't take long. It's anything involving the constitutional rights of our citizens. That's the Constitution's our guiding light. So that's preeminent. First Amendment rights to free speech and assembly are our Second Amendment rights. I don't think the Third Amendment, the Quartering Act, is going to be an issue anytime soon, so I'm not going to put that one out there. But our rights to privacy, our rights to a fair trial and due process, anything in our Constitution, voting, all that stuff, those are going to be the pressing, important issues in my mind at this time. And I'm not saying how I'd rule on them. I'm just saying I think those are going to be the preeminent issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the questions from Carolwood's residents. We'll have 1 minute each to respond, and we will start again with Judge Stading. How would you maintain an impartial stance with the political parties pushing in opposite directions? How do you envision working with justices of both parties?
I do that every single day now in my current job. I mean, as a judge, you're guided by your judicial philosophy. I'm a textualist, and I follow original intent, what the law was intended to be at the time it was ratified, the Constitution as well, for that matter. And that doesn't involve politics at all. That's just a judicial philosophy. It's a grounded philosophy that the judge should follow, in my opinion. And so there's no outside influences at that point in time. And in terms of working with other folks, I work in a courthouse where there's all different kinds of judges in terms of how they're affiliated, how they do their job, how they do their work, and we all have to work together, and we do that because the wheel's got to keep going, and it would be no problem moving forward at a different court level. I enjoy working with all kinds of folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, you're next. 1 minute.
That's a very good question. I would point to my record. I mentioned earlier in my opening statement, I spearheaded the opioid and pain management initiative and brought together both parties, Republicans and Democrats. Folks who were, advocates for injured workers, folks within the insurance community, medical professionals, brought everyone together, and we hammered out a solution. And that is a real life, tangible example of how it can be done. It's a legitimate fear. Politics is broken in this country. And that's one reason why I have not rolled out a bunch of endorsements, because I don't think it's appropriate, if you're a judicial officer, to be rolling out endorsements of people who likely, in some cases, already have cases before you. It erodes faith in the integrity of the judicial system.
Thank you. Judge Stroud, you have 1 minute.
Yes, thank you. Well, I have been on the court, of course, for 15 years. I've worked with over 50 other judges on this court. And so I certainly have worked with judges of all sorts, of all backgrounds. And this is a collegial court. That is, we always have to work together in panels of 3 judges when we're making decisions. I used to be a trial judge, so I have been there and done that. And sometimes judges do have difficulty making that transition from being a single decision maker by themselves to being part of a group and making those decisions. But it is extremely important. It's absolutely necessary for the work of this court. And it is something that I have been doing for 15 years, like I said, with a huge variety of judges from all backgrounds.
Thank you. Judge Smith, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I have never had a problem working with folks that have different views than I do. For 34 years, I've been doing that. As a judge, I have never asked anyone in front of me what's their party affiliation. As a matter of fact, when I first ran for district court judge, it was nonpartisan. When I ran again, it was partisan. And I had many, many people contact me and say, I had no idea you were a member of that party. That's not the party I'm affiliated with, but I see what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing, and you're doing the right thing. Keep up the good work. So I think it's very apparent that I have the proven integrity to be able to work with members of all different walks of life, as a prosecutor, as a district court judge, and as a concerned community citizen. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the second resident question. Under what conditions should a judge recuse herself or himself? Judge Smith, 1 minute.
Well, I am Judge Beth Freshwater Smith, and that's an easy question for me. If I can't be fair and impartial, then I definitely need to recuse myself. Also, not just, sometimes you can be impartial, but the appearance is that you cannot be impartial. So I have been doing that for years, not just as a district court judge, but when it came to the prosecution of particular cases in the courtroom as a prosecutor. It is imperative that the citizens have confidence in our judiciary, and that is one of my main goals, is to ensure that the Constitution is followed and the laws are adhered to as they are written, and that there can be confidence in our judiciary.
Oh, thank you. Judge Stroud.
Yes, that's exactly right. We have the duty to recuse if we feel that we cannot be fair and impartial in a case for whatever reason. But also, if there is an appearance of impropriety, and often, the practice on the Court of Appeals here, of course, is a little bit, for the judges on an court, because we have 3 judge panels, we have 15 judges on the court. It's not difficult for us to recuse if we need to do so, because we can simply, we have a random process here at the Court of Appeals. If a judge recuse, then a judge is reassigned to take that case. That is, we don't make the decision about who's going to take the case. That's reassigned in a random manner so that it is done fairly. So, like I said, if someone is involved, obviously if someone is involved in a case that we know personally or that we have had some association with or whatever, then, we recuse. And that's always been our standard practice.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, 1 minute.
Thank you. Another very good question. I would recuse myself whenever there's the potential of an appearance of impropriety or something that's delineated in the Code of Judicial Conduct, which applies to the Court of Appeals, and it also applies to the there. And I had, a number of cases that I had to recuse myself, or in some cases, I recused myself because of the appearance. Particularly 2 circumstances come to mind, at least 2, where I had former clients from over, I think, 15 years ago that were appearing in a case before me, and I had to recuse myself from that. So based upon the Code of Judicial Conduct, or if there's anything that would look improper, I would recuse myself.
Thank you. Judge Stanning?
I hate to sound like a broken record with the first 2, the judges that went there, but I mean certainly anything that would, the judge would make them feel that they were unfair or partial in a matter, certainly should never ever do that. And then there's that other area which, I truly believe most judges try to do the best they can in being fair and impartial. I think that every day we have judges that go in and do that, but then there's that part of anything that gives the appearance of impropriety. Because we need the people in the system, the litigants, to have the confidence in our judicial system, and to feel that very important 3rd branch of government has the intellectual integrity that it should, because that's the only way the Constitution works. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the 3rd question. What does the principle of separation of church and state mean to you personally? Judge Stanning?
So that's number one. I want to say those words are not in the Constitution. There's constitutional tests that apply to something within the realm of that principle you're speaking of, and just as a judge, you just apply the legally appropriate test. That's simple. You just follow the law and uphold your oath.
Okay. Mr. Allen?
Yes, another very good question. As Judge Stanning said, that particular term does not appear in the constitutional text. It's actually, something from a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote. But, Jefferson was not speaking for the country and did not, participate in the Constitutional Convention. And that language was not present. I would guide myself by what is present in the actual Constitution, and particularly Amendment 1, the First Amendment, that speaks to that very issue of freedom of religion. And religious groups have the right in this country to participate in the public square. And that's something that is very important to me. I have stood up for that for many, many years, even before I was an attorney. And that language should not be used to exclude citizens and religious groups from participation in the public square.
Judge Stroud, again, 1 minute.
Yes, I certainly agree with both who've gone before me. Those words are not in the Constitution. The words that are actually in the Constitution are what we call the Free Exercise Clause and the Establishment Clause. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, and it goes on. So I have certainly written cases on this, and it is very important to realize that this is a right that is reserved to people that, is in the Constitution. And like I said, I have written cases addressing this issue. And it is certainly something that has been under attack recently. It's one of those constitutional rights that individuals' rights have been threatened in various ways. And we're going to be getting cases on that. And of course, like I said, we can't say how we would rule on any individual case. I would simply ask people to look at the cases I've written addressing these issues.
Thank you. Judge Smith.
Thank you. I'm afraid my answers will be redundant, but certainly what everyone else has said is accurate. It is not in the Constitution. And I follow the Constitution as it is written and the laws that are based on the Constitution. And our country was built and based on religious freedoms. And so anyone that is trying to misuse the separation of church and state is inaccurate. That is not what was meant, and I will uphold the law.
Well, thank you both. Now we will conclude this portion of the forum with the candidate closing remarks. Please include in your remarks both your qualifications for office and the reasons we should vote for you. We'll begin now with Judge Smith. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Well, obviously in my opening, I made some remarks about my qualifications and why I should be the next judge on the North Carolina Court of Appeals for seat number 9. I was reared on patriotism, the American work ethic, and Christian values. And I believe in the Constitution, and I believe that, I'm dedicated to making our system of justice work as our forefathers intended. I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant. I'm a mother of 2. I have a daughter that is graduating law school and a son that's a rising senior at North Carolina State University. As a judge, I will decide the cases and on the law as it is written. I have the conservative values, proven experience, and a commitment to justice that is needed. I'll uphold the Constitution and I will protect our freedoms. There have been many changes in the law since 2006. And I've been out there in the courtrooms during these changes. I have been working with trial attorneys and judges, and the Court of Appeals needs change now as well. The Court of Appeals needs a judge such as myself that not only has the academic knowledge, but the experience and the commitment to justice that is needed. I invite folks to look at my website. You can get more particular information about my qualifications. I would appreciate your vote, ladies and gentlemen, in the primary and again in the general election. I leave you with this. As Senator Jim Perry said, North Carolina is thirsty for judges that follow the law. North Carolina needs fresh water, and I will be the only freshwater Smith on your ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Stroud, 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you so much. So before I could begin, one thing I do want to correct. At our court, over the last 20 years, I have all the statistics, and normally about half of our cases are criminal. They're down a bit now. They've never been 80% criminal. We have approximately half of our cases are criminal on a normal basis. I just wanted to correct that, because one of the things that I've been doing as Chief Judge of the Court is looking back over the statistics, looking at disposition times, looking at the performance of the court, looking at the effectiveness of the court, and doing things to improve that. And one of the most important goals I hope to accomplish is to continue that work in improving the work of our court, improving transparency, improving our efficiency. And so we've been looking at all those things and making changes. And I don't have time to talk about all those things here, but I do want to continue that work. As part of that work, I do work on a number of committees that look at the entire court system. I serve as the chair of the Chief Justice's Rules Advisory Commission, which is working on electronic filing across the entire state. I serve on the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism, which works on professionalism with attorneys and courts across the state, and have done a number of projects there I don't have time to talk about. But one of the things that's extremely important is just for the functioning of this court to continue to improve. to improve the collegiality on our court, and to keep the faith of the public in the integrity of the court and the integrity of the judges here. I have all of the trial court experience as a district court judge. I have the private practice experience. I have the academic training, and I have the actual experience here in doing this work for 15 years. I would appreciate your vote and your support. You can look at my website, judgestroud.com, for more information. And in closing, just remember that you can be proud to vote for Stroud. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, and thank you to the organizers and the residents of Carroll Woods for providing this opportunity for each of us to address y'all. And it's been my pleasure to do so, and I humbly and respectfully ask for your vote. I would submit to you I am the more experienced candidate for this seat. I've been licensed as an attorney for 25 years, been Chief Judicial Officer of the North Carolina Industrial Commission, which is one of the largest tribunals in this state, as I talked about in my opening remarks. I brought people together. I've issued hundreds of well-reasoned, well-thought-out, legally sound court opinions that are a matter of record. And I would, obviously I could be corrected by Chief Judge Stroud, but I think the number of workers' compensation cases that are appealed from the Industrial Commission to the Court of Appeals comprises about 17 to 20% of the, well, I was told that. But it is a substantial portion of the Court of Appeals docket, and no one has that experience like I do to bring to the table to make sure that well-reasoned, well-thought-out decisions on workers' compensation matters are issued by the Court of Appeals, and also in state tort claims and other matters within the jurisdiction of the Commission.
Thank you.
I humbly and respectfully ask for your vote. Again, I'm Charlton Allen, and I'll leave you with a quote. John Adams once said, "Liberty once gone is gone forever." And I will work to assure that that does not happen as long as I have anything to do with it on the North Carolina Court of Appeals. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Standing, 2 minutes.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone there who has cared enough to join us today to care about the court system. God bless you. My campaign has been all about experience, dedication, and hard work. And when I say experience, I'm not talking about a single area of the law. I'm talking about all over the place. As I indicated, I actually have a specialization in criminal law, but that's not all I've practiced. I practiced in civil court, administrative court, and then federal court for the military. I've provided legal assistance to clients. I've actually conducted jury trials as a district court judge. You do that with civil cases sometimes. Family court stuff, juvenile matters, practically anything you can think of, panoramic view in the courtroom. And like I said, even defended folks, prosecuted folks. I've represented law enforcement officers, so I've gotten to see a little bit of everything you can see in a courtroom that will come up there on appeal. I heard a mention about endorsements, and I'll just say this. I think they do matter because I think it's folks who are in the know, who know you, who have even worked with you at times, and they understand what you're capable of. And so I would just like to say that there are a number of folks in the court system who have endorsed me. And they include folks on the Supreme Court of North Carolina, on the Court of Appeals of North Carolina, in the superior courts, in the district courts, people that do know me personally. And then with respect to hard work, I've been doing this since January of last year. I've been getting out there to meet every single voter, shake every hand, let people ask me questions and fill me out for themselves live, in person, in their county. Upwards of more than 60 counties at this point in time. And that's just before a primary. That doesn't even include a general. And for a court of appeals race, that's hard work. You don't have the budget of a governor or somebody running for Senate. So that comes out of your family and your friends and folks who really believe in you. And there's a lot of those folks out there who put that trust in me. And I just want to thank everybody there. Again, God bless you for caring about the court system and the state as much as you do to be here.
Thank you, Judge.
Everyone has a wonderful day.
Thank you. We thank all 4 judicial candidates for spending time with us today. Candidates, thank you for being willing to serve the citizens of our state. Please feel free to log out whenever you wish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now we're setting up for the second part, which is a Democratic primary race for our North Carolina House of Representatives, District 56 seat on the Democratic ballot. There are no Republicans running for this seat in the primary. Welcome to the candidates, Jonah Garson and Alan Wansi.
Thank you.
Can you both hear me?
Yes, sir. I can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you as well.
Okay. We will proceed much as we have been. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves and make their initial presentation in the order of the ballot. For successive questions, we reverse the ordering. Please include in your remarks both your qualifications for office and the reasons we should vote for you. You have 3 minutes, and please note that in the window, Paul Lindsay will show a yellow card when you have 30 seconds remaining, and red means stop. Mr. Garson, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much, y'all. I am so happy to be here. My name is Jonah Garson. I'm an attorney. I'm a longtime organizer in this state legislative fight of ours, and I'm a Chapel Hill native, and I am running to represent each and every one of you in our North Carolina House. I'm running because right now it is not at a time when it is absolutely not at all hyperbole to say that there's a war on democracy in this state and in this country. We need legislators who are also organizers. The folks in this district expect whomever steps in to succeed Representative Verla Insco and fill her big shoes as a good progressive policy vote. That person also needs to have substantive legislative policy experience working at the General Assembly. That's my experience. But more than that, we need legislators who are also organizers. Because of the truth of the matter is, whether it's core democracy reform beginning with redistricting reform and voting rights, or UNC governance reform, something near and dear to my heart as a proud UNC alum, or big progressive policy, voting rights, reinvestment in public education generally, climate action, healthcare as a right, including reproductive healthcare and behavioral healthcare, we have been stymied for the past 12 years. If we want core democracy reform to give us the baseline threshold functionality to advance and win big progressive policy, we need someone who not only has worked in the General Assembly, but someone who has spent the last 12 years organizing for power shift. Because if we don't make change in the Pitt counties and the Cabarrus counties, in the Cumberland counties of this state, marshaling the power and the resources of our beloved community here, we're not going to finally win that democracy reform and big progressive policy. My background, as I said, I think I grew up here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I'm the son of a labor organizer turned public health worker and a therapist in this town. I'm a proud graduate of Chapel Hill High School, Go Tigers. I graduated from Carolina in 2009, Columbia Law School in 2014. At UNC, I studied North Carolina government and politics and history and literature. And then I went to work as an intern and as a legislative staffer for Carol Woods' own Senator Ellie Kinnaird, for the late, great Representative Paul Lubke, who was co-chair of the House Finance Committee, Speaker Joe Hackney, and this was the last years of Democratic control. And I watched this slow motion disaster as Democrats, we didn't pass redistricting reform. The GOP came into power in 2010, gerrymandered themselves into power, and we've been in the wilderness for the past 12 years. And so for the past 12 years, my work has been an organized fight as the field coordinator for dozens of state legislative challengers running in every corner of the state, as state Democratic voter protection director, including for the redone congressional election, 9th congressional, chair of Orange Dems here. I would love to earn each and every one of y'all's votes. So happy to be here. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Your time is up. Now, Mr. Wansi.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the Carol Woods community for having us. My name is Alan Boyncy, and I'm running to be your next State House Representative in District 56, Chapel Hill and Carrboro. I've been a civil rights lawyer and a former Chapel Hill Town Council member. I'm running to fight for an affordable, accessible, and inclusive North Carolina for everyone. I'm homegrown. I'm a proud product and son and nephew of public school teachers. I attended Gabby Phillips Middle School and graduated from East Chapel High School right down the road. I went on to graduate from Dartmouth College and UNC Law School. I'm also a husband. My wife, Dr. Sarah Coet, has a PhD in public health and is an assistant professor at UNC. I'm also a father of 3 beautiful children, Zara, Moses, and Isaiah. I've dedicated my career to fighting for equitable public education, environmental justice, affordable healthcare access, and protection of our civil rights. These are my top priorities as a candidate, and I've successfully driven progressive policies related to those priorities during my time on the Chapel Hill Town Council. I have the experience that it takes to work effectively with others and to hit the ground running. So my experience includes representing low-income and working-class communities who have suffered from the pollutive and harmful practices of industrial hog farms. My experience includes serving as the policy and field director on Josh Stein's campaign for Attorney General in 2016, when against a massive tide of red led by Trump, we found a way to win a statewide election. I was also appointed by Governor Roy Cooper to serve on the statewide local government employer retirement system board of trustees to care for our city, town, and county employees in retirement. My experience includes working on bills that passed at the state legislature, like the STOP Act to address the opioid crisis. And I've also worked on bills that we still need to pass, like the Hate Crimes Prevention Act to protect our LGBTQ, as well as our Asian American community. I draw my motivation from my youth in Chapel Hill and from my love of history. In middle school, I read about Justice Thurgood Marshall and Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, folks who, in a time when it was very bleak in our country's history, Jim Crow and the systematic shutting out of women from certain educational and job opportunities, they had a very clear vision, a fair and equitable society for everyone, where everyone is empowered with the tools that they need to succeed and to thrive in life. And so that's what I see myself in the service of. And in the legislature, we need legislators with experience. We need folks who can fill the shoes that Representative Inscoe have set for us. We've had 20 plus years of steady leadership experience from her, and we need someone who has the experience, the temperament, and the know-how, the track record to get the job done. And so I hope that I can earn your trust, just as the governor and attorney general have trusted me. I hope to earn your trust and your vote for State House. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll proceed to the questions. First one is, what do you believe are the 3 most central issues facing the North Carolina House during the coming year, and what would you do to address them? And we would start with Mr. Blancy.
Yes, so 3 most pressing issues, as I see them, are 1, public education, 2, climate justice, and then 3, healthcare access. So with public education, we still have teachers who are being vastly underpaid. My aunt, who teaches at Sewell Elementary School, always reminds me that not only do we need higher teacher pay, because right now we're in the bottom half, I think number 33 in terms of average teacher pay, not only do we need to increase that in order to draw more quality teachers, we also need to make sure that we are providing our teachers with the best benefits possible. Our teachers still have unpaid parental leave. In a profession that is majority women, that is patently unfair. And so I would fight for that. I would also fight to invest in our school infrastructure. We've got about $13 billion in needed repairs across the state. This is according to the Department of Public Instruction. And so we badly need to pass a state bond. We have not passed a significant state bond for school repairs since 1996. And so we need to do that quick, fast, in a hurry. Environmental justice, we need to update the standards we have for emissions from hog farms, which are some of the largest greenhouse gas emitters that our state has. We need to fund EEQ to levels that they can enforce said regulations. Under healthcare, we badly need to expand Medicaid to ensure 500,000 more North Carolinians, but also to stop the closure of our rural hospitals. And we also need to restore the earned income tax credit to help out families so they don't have to choose between basic necessities and healthcare.
Thank you, Mr. Blancy. The second question. Mr. Garson, you have 1.5 minutes, and I apologize for not telling Mr. Blancy he had 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. The top three issues: democracy reform, reinvestment in public education, Medicaid expansion for this year. Democracy reform and voting rights are predicate to everything. They are fundamental. They are the building block. I think everyone in this virtual room, in the physical space in Carroll Woods right now, knows that there really is a war on democracy in this country. I have been proud as a voting rights attorney, as the state Democratic voter protection director, to fight for voting rights. And what that means, and I'm going to begin with some things that aren't entirely glamorous, but what that means is making sure our 100 county boards of elections are fully funded so that staff can get the training they need to administer our democracy. Number one. Number two, we need to continue to push for redistricting reform. Without unrigging our maps, we are not going to win so much of the big progressive policy that we need to win. And we need to beat back any attacks to undermine our election mechanics and the fundamental architecture of democracy. Number two, reinvestment in public education. $35,000 in starting teacher pay doesn't allow you, if you are a teacher in Chapel Hill Carborough schools, to live in this community. That is a moral outrage. Right now, the GOP is introducing what's called merit pay to tie teacher pay to narrow test scores.
I'm sorry, Mr. Garson, your time is up.
Thank you very much.
Now, the next question is, what do you think state government can do to ameliorate the effects of climate change? In your answer, please name at least one thing the state is doing right and that you would seek to continue. Then describe any high-priority additional programs you would push at the state level to address climate change. Mr. Garson, you have 1.5 minutes.
Number one, the thing that is going right, the big thing that just happened last year, is that in bipartisan consensus, North Carolina passed huge landmark decarbonization legislation. That means that by 2030, we have a mandate to be 70% carbon neutral. By 2050, totally carbon neutral. Now, here's the thing. As aggressive and as bold as that decarbonization legislation is to get us away from dirty power and to net zero generally, it allows Duke Energy to really externalize costs on ratepayers, Duke Energy ratepayers who are least positioned to pay. We need to center equity in our climate transition. Duke Energy loves to externalize the costs of its pollution and now of its transition away from dirty coal onto ratepayers. But while it's running a $6 or $7 billion profit, I think that's wrong. I am going to continue to push for a transition that is truly equitable, where our poorest frontline communities in this state aren't the ones who are also bearing the cost. In Eastern North Carolina, that means our Black communities, our Lumbee communities, and our poor communities generally need to be at the front lines of getting those investments to build resilient infrastructure so that we can move forward and move aggressively to address our climate crisis.
Thank you. Mr. Bwonsey, the same question, 1.5 minutes.
Yes, so to the table, I bring a number of experiences working on behalf of advocating for Black and brown and poor communities, especially out east and out west, who are disproportionately impacted by hog farms, by poultry farms, which again are some of the highest greenhouse gas emitters that our state has. I was actually a part of negotiating for a settlement with the Department of Environmental Quality to update our standards. With respect to the work of the General Assembly, we badly need to update those standards. We have not updated our standards for emissions for this industry in about 25 years. And we don't have any standards to speak of for the poultry farms, which are unpermitted, unregulated, and are hurting a lot of communities with the contamination of air, water, not to mention the downstream effects, the tributaries and the streams that go and empty into our Atlantic Ocean. We have a situation in our General Assembly where turning to renewable energy has been dissuaded, especially by Republicans on the other side. But we need to reframe that. We need to change the argument into an economic one. Not only are fossil fuels harmful, but they're a source of jobs that are dwindling. And so we need to reinstate the renewable energy tax credit. We need to incentivize public transit, create more funding for public transit across the state so that people don't have to depend on cars. These are some of the ways that we can attack the climate crisis, and that's what I'm dedicated to.
Okay, thank you. Now now we go to the resident questions. The first is, do you favor the General Assembly expanding Medicaid coverage for uninsured residents of North Carolina? Why or why not? Now, you have 1 minute, Mr. Bonsi. We've shortened it.
Yes. So yes, fully. I believe that we should expand Medicaid. We should have done it years and years ago. And I was proud to actually sit next to Reverend Barber when he was president of the NAACP of North Carolina, actually sued in conjunction with the Republican mayor of the town of Belhaven to prevent the closure of a rural hospital. And that Republican mayor also said that we need to expand Medicaid. It's an issue that Republicans and Democrats both agree on. And we've even seen the Senate, the president pro tempore of the Senate, Phil Berger, actually start to come around on it as well. So, I want to be a part of getting it over the finish line, expanding Medicaid so we can ensure 500,000 more North Carolinians and so we can stop the closure of our rural hospitals.
Thank you. Mr. Garson.
Yes. We should have expanded Medicaid a decade ago. So many thousands of North Carolinians have died for want of Medicaid expansion. Medicaid expansion covers 600,000 of the 1.5 million uninsured. It is primary care. It is addiction support and recovery. It is preventative care. It is saving rural hospitals. I think we're going to get Medicaid expansion this year. We need someone to step in the General Assembly, step onto the relevant health committees, who has worked in the General Assembly, who understands the committee process and understands how the negotiations around the committee process actually works. That's my experience. I will fight for Medicaid expansion without a work requirement. We need to allow Medicaid expansion to be accessible to as many people in this state as possible. As taxpayers, we have been paying for other states' Medicaid expansion for over a decade, and we haven't allowed our neighbors here in North Carolina to get the benefits themselves. It is the #1 healthcare priority. I am optimistic that we're going to get it done. And so that's what excites me about this coming year and going forward. But again, the experience in the General Assembly matters, and stepping in to negotiate this thing, get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you. On the second resident question, would you work for and vote to raise the state minimum wage? If so, how quickly would you raise it and toward what end rate? Mr. Garson, you have 1 minute.
We need living wages in the state of North Carolina. $7.25. Our minimum wage right now is a poverty wage, and that's a moral outrage. Living wage in most places in North Carolina is above $15 an hour. Whatever living wage that we set needs to be indexed to the rise in consumer prices, or else today's living wage becomes tomorrow's poverty wage. I am all for raising our minimum wage to $15 immediately, and then working to raise the living wage to true living wage standards as quickly as possible. Coupled with living wage increases, though, we need to make sure that we pass strong legislation regulating worker misclassification so that employees are not misclassified as independent contractors, because that is a way that oftentimes corporations, big employers try to cheat the system. And if you allow cheats in the system, we don't have living wages. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bonsi, you have 1 minute.
Yes, so I support an increase in the minimum wage to at least $15 per hour. I'm open to minimum wage higher than that, but the fight for $15 per hour is a necessary first step. 2 states have already implemented a $15 per hour minimum wage, and 9 others, including our neighbor to the north, Virginia, will reach that milestone in the next 4 years. There's no reason why we cannot and should not pursue the same change. We've seen a number of businesses already go ahead and increase their wages because of job competition, because folks are not satisfied with the minimum wage. I would work to implement this increase through a similar framework as California and New York, which used a phased-in approach. As I learned in getting things done on town council, a fundamental first step is going to be to work with stakeholders, including small businesses, to come up with an appropriate phased-in approach. While we need to get to $15 quick, fast, and in a hurry, we also need to do it in a way that makes sense for everyone, including our folks that are working. And so within a 4-year framework, I see that as a very definite possibility for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the third question. What are your local current obligations, such as work, volunteer commitments, family, and so on? How would you accommodate them to be in Raleigh as needed?
That question for me?
Okay. What are your current local obligations, such as work, volunteer commitments, family, and so on? How would you accommodate them to be in Raleigh as needed?
Yes, so I'm proud to be a working parent. In the 2020 legislative session, we only had 3 members out of the 120-member state house who were parents of children 18 and under. That is a perspective we are sorely lacking. And so, in terms of my obligations, I'm a parent, I work for a living, and we have a lot of family support in the area that helps us out with our child care needs, something that a lot of families don't have access to. And so I want to increase child care subsidies for folks. Also want to make sure that we are expanding opportunities for parental leave for our teachers. But between having a village here, having family to support us in raising our children, and having to work for a living, I feel confident that I can do a great job, bring a good perspective, and do the work that needs to be done for North Carolina.
Thank you. Mr. Garson, same question, 1 minute.
To begin with, I've spent the last 10 years working heart and soul to get candidates elected to the North Carolina General Assembly with families when you're paid $14,000 a year in a per diem with often no notice on the agenda. I am proud of that work. I have an amazing law practice here in Chapel Hill that allows me the flexibility to do the organizing work, do the policy advocacy work that has been a centerpiece of my labor for the past 14 years. And so I am able to give this job, which is what it is, the full-time plus energy on the organizing side, on the policy advocacy side, on the legislating side, that it needs to be given. And I've proven that over 14 years. For 14 years, this work has been my work, and I have organized my life. And I'm happy to have the support of my family and my community here. My girlfriend, who's a public defender, who works the same hours I do. I am so proud of the work that we do together here, and I have the time and the energy to step into this job.
Okay, now the final question. What experience do you have that will help you in your legislative work? And how does that experience uniquely qualify you in this election for the North Carolina House? Mr. Garson, to 1 minute.
I'm the only candidate here who has worked in the General Assembly. I worked for our budget co-chair during difficult recession budget negotiations. I worked for Carol Woods' own Senator Ellie Kinnaird on a number of different committee assignments. I understand how budget negotiations work. I understand how the negotiation process works. The North Carolina General Assembly is a very different political context than our local political context here in Chapel Hill. It requires hard bipartisan work. It requires planting the flag when you need to plant the flag. I'm also an organizer around the state legislative fight. I have worked for 12 years in this fight, getting Democrats elected across the state. And what I think we all know at this point is that, again, we are not going to move forward finally after 12 difficult years if we don't have legislators who are organizers, who know how to make the change in the Cumberland counties, the Alamance counties of the state, so that we can win finally the policy that we've been fighting for right here at home. Thank you.
Now we would like to hear your closing remarks. No, we have, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, Mr. Boyce, right?
Thank you. So in terms of what I bring is elected experience. I'm the only candidate that has been elected to public office. And not just that, I'm the only candidate who has gotten significant progressive policy work done. It's required reaching out to others because we can't get done, we can't get work done by ourselves. We have to build a consensus. We have to build a majority. And I certainly have a lot of practical experience doing just that, especially with our criminal justice debt fund. We are the first town to actually adopt such a fund, and also with our reimagining community safety work. So I'm the only candidate who's got elected experience and the experience of getting things done. Also, when I worked at the Department of Justice, I actually did work on bills and in the General Assembly to get important work done, like the STOP Act, which was a bipartisan act that helped curb the circulation of excess opioids to address the opioid crisis. And so I bring that practical experience to the table as well in the General Assembly. And lastly, I'm a civil rights lawyer. Gotten to work in different parts of North Carolina, rural areas, urban areas. I know well the needs of North Carolinians, and I will bring that to the table as the next State House representative. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll go to the closing remarks. Please include in your remarks your qualifications for office and the reasons we should vote for you. Again, Mr. Boyce, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, well, again, I want to thank you all for your engagement, for caring about this election. It's a critical election. Even though it's a primary, this is an election to decide who will step into the shoes that Representative Inscoe has laid out for us. She's someone who came into the office with experience, and it helped her to immediately hit the ground running. I think also the experiences that I've had in terms of working on legislation in the General Assembly, from the STOP Act, which was winning legislation, to the Hate Crimes Prevention Act, which I was able to work with with the likes of Representative Inscoe, with Representative Maury as well. But that kind of practical experience, having a reputation before even stepping into office, I think that is something that our district needs in order to get the job done, in order to command the respect of folks around the state, because we're not just here to represent our district. We're here to represent North Carolina. We're here to represent the interests of working class folks, of poor folks, to advance affordable housing, to advance Medicaid, expansion of Medicaid, to advance higher teacher salaries. All of those priorities are going to require someone who has the experience, with the know-how, with the relationships to leverage to get to where we need to get to. And you can count on me to be a person of action, to have a good temperament, and ultimately to get the job done. So I hope to earn your trust and your vote, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Garson, 2 minutes.
I'm so happy to be here, y'all. I've worked with many of you in the room as chair of the Orange Dems on the Chapel Hill Carrboro NAACP Executive Committee, where I've been for a few terms, and as a statewide organizer around this legislative fight for the past decade. We've given it our all. This work has been my work for the past 14 years. Right now, again, we need legislators who are also organizers, who have substantive legislative policy experience, who have worked in the General Assembly, but again, who have given all of their work and focus and time and energy to try to change the equation in these key battleground counties across the state. What an organizer is someone who knows how to show up in community and bridge difference. And that can be any community. That could be our local community. That could be a Cabarrus County of the state. It could be Pitt County of the state. We need legislators who are also organizers, because without changing the balance of power, again, we don't get that floor of stable democracy that allows us to win UNC governance reform, that allows us to get big climate action policy and big reinvestment in public education. And we can't wait any longer. 8 more years. The full next decade is too long to wait. And for those of us who have been in this fight for 14 years, we know how difficult it's been and how many North Carolinians have suffered as a result. I'm the only candidate here who has given all of that attention and focus to this fight. And I am asking for each and every one of your votes for the North Carolina House. I'm happy to answer any and all questions offline. Y'all know me. You know how much I care about and love this work and this community. Thank you all so much for having me here.
Thank both of you for joining us. We appreciate your willingness to serve the people of this area. Please feel free to log out whenever you wish.
Thank you.
Now we go to the third section. Okay, we have with us the candidates for Orange County Register of Deeds on the Democratic ballot, Mark Chilton and Penny Rich. There are no Republicans running for this office. We will proceed in the same way. In the first round, you will each have 3 minutes for your introductory remarks. For your initial presentation, it will be 3 minutes in the order on the ballot. For successive questions, we will reverse the order. Please include in your remarks both your qualifications for office and the reasons we should vote for you. Please pay attention to the window with the person holding up the colored cards. Yellow means 30 seconds remains, and red means stop. Mr. Chilton, you have 3 minutes to and give us your opening remarks with your qualifications for office and the reasons we should vote for you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on. I hope y'all can hear me all right. Good afternoon. Thank you to Carol Woods and all of you who helped to organize this event, and those of you who are watching from the audience. My name is Mark Chilton. I'm your Orange County Register of Deeds. In this race, I'm running on my record. As Register of Deeds, my office has done more for the people of Orange County than any of my predecessors. I've increased net revenues from our office by more than 150%, with 15% less staff than I had when I was first elected, and in less office space, while expanding the services that we provide. I'm a 25-year real estate veteran. Worked for the last 25 years as a real estate professional. 17 years I worked as a lawyer. 8 years I've served you as your Register of Deeds. I'm a proud 1997 graduate cum laude of North Carolina Central University School of Law. I know how to train and direct our staff and continuously improve our systems because I understand what we do at a granular level. I follow the rule of law transparently and scrupulously because I understand those rules and have worked with them all of my professional life. The core of my mandate are functions described by North Carolina law. Every day, we deliver those services at the highest standard, and we did so during an unprecedented global pandemic, and I'm incredibly proud of that. But there's more to this position than just what the law spells out for me. I don't just close shop at 5 o'clock, and that's that. As a public servant, I believe that if I can do more, then I must do more. So, as well as knocking it out of the park on the core Register of Deeds functions, from the very beginning, I've also looked at ways that our office can be more and do more for the people of Orange County. One major way I do that is by adding new services, including passports, a new free fraud alert service, and simplified business filings. In my next term, I will continue to address waste, further saving taxpayers' money with even more efficiencies and new improvements to the important interface between the Register of Deeds office and the tax department, as well as between the Register of Deeds office and the health department. That's a lot, but I've done even more than that. In the last 8 years, I've devoted hundreds of hours to diving into our vault and pulling out historical records about enslaved people and people of color. These records help to bring to light the stories of oppression, racial oppression that are a part of our history. Some people may see that as frivolous or marginal activity, but I think it's essential. It's important to African American genealogists in our community, and it's important to our entire country and county for us to recognize the true history of racial oppression in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rich?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for Carol Woods for organizing this forum. I know it's been a long afternoon, but just hang in with us for a few more minutes. I have a strong connection to Carol Woods because both of my sons, Miko and Brody, worked in the dining services all through the high school years. I often joke around, how about y'all help me raise them? And I can tell you you've raised two fine young men. My name is Penny Rich, and I've been serving this community for over 20 years. My experience in local, state, and regional government has given me the opportunity to work with our residents, always trying to make Orange County a place for everyone to experience a good life. I was on the OWASA board from 01 to 07, and as you know, in 2001, we had a horrible drought, and I helped create some of our water conservation policy that remains in place today. I was on the Chapel Hill Town Council from 09 to 12, where I was able to expand in creating good policy and also addressing budgeting issues. And then, of course, I was on the Board of County Commissioners from 2012 to 20. I was the chair from 18 to 20. And as many of you remember, I was elevated to the chief elected official in charge with leading our county through the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, the question in everyone's mind is, why am I running for Register of Deeds? And the simple reply is, I think we can do better. As a county commissioner, I listen closely for ways local government can better serve our community. And time again, I heard the Register of Deeds website. It was hard to navigate. The software is old and not designed for general public. Communications were fraught. The office was often closed. And turnaround time for property closings were far too slow. It's clear to me that improvements are needed, and I'm ready to step up to the plate. So what's my vision? Well, I want to create the next generation of Register of Deeds office. I want to make the office more user-friendly by updating our online interface. The website is old and hard to navigate. It's also very clumsy. I want to expedite the document request process and allow for faster closings, especially on property and land. I want to make the office more convenient and accessible for every member of our community. And I especially want to be present in the office with the Register of Deeds Association, the UNC School of Government, and with our state representatives. I want to create a project for our high school juniors and seniors to allow them to come and receive learning hours, learn how to do research, and maybe even be considered for paid internship. I want to make the office resilient in case we ever have to deal with an emergency like we just did again. I want to create a space that empowers staff by supplying them with the tools that they need to provide customer service our residents expect and deserve. My decades of experience in public service prepare me to take on this challenge. I continue to have an unwavering desire to serve my community. And with your support, I know we can improve this office. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Now we will proceed to the questions. The first question is, what, in your own personal background and upbringing, do you consider most significant in shaping the person you are now? You start with you, Ms. Rich.
Well, thank you. That's a great question. And I'm going to tell a very old story that's going to address something that most of the women in the room can relate to. When I was growing up, women couldn't wear pants to school. I grew up north, and what we had to do, because it was cold, we wore pants underneath our dresses. And then we had to go into a classroom and take the pants off once we got into that classroom. I started, at 7th grade, my body started changing, and I didn't want to do this anymore. I wanted to continue wearing pants. The boys wore pants, why couldn't I? So I didn't do it. I didn't take my pants off. I got suspended. I wound up spending a week with the principal in his office, and he said to me, Miss Rich, in a very stern voice, if you create a petition and get 50 signatures, we can bring this up in front of the PTAs across, I then grew up in Jersey City. And I said to him, what's a petition? So I spent the week learning about what a petition was, how to create a petition. And not only did I get 50 signatures, I got 300 signatures, including teachers and PTA folks and parents. And what I learned from this is that the way to create change is to collaborate and work with someone that can give you that experience. But you have to create change for the better. And that's what I want to do when I get into the Register of Deeds office. I want to create the change that we know that how we can better serve our residents.
Thank you. Mr. Chilton, 1.5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you for the question. As I think about it, I think probably the thing that shaped me most from my youth and my growing up was the way in which I was bullied in schools. I was not one of the popular kids. I was not one of the athletic kids, I was treated very badly by many of my classmates. I got beat up at school. I got called names. Honestly, just speaking from the heart, it was very difficult for me in middle school and in high school both. And I think what I learned from that was empathy. I learned from that I learned to empathize with other people who are in situations in which they're being mistreated, and I learned to stand up for those people, and I learned to stand up against bullies. And I believe that that's part of why I got involved in being an environmental activist, how I became involved in local government, and part of what I do even today.
Thank you. The second question, you both have considerable governmental experience in Orange County. Why are you seeking this office rather than any other? And start with Mr. Chilton.
Well, I said 8 years ago when I ran for this office, and I meant it, that being Register of Deeds of Orange County was one of my life goals. I've been involved in real estate matters in Orange County for 25 years now. I have a deep interest and commitment to the history of this community. And as Register of Deeds, I'm the custodian of and the promulgator of our historical records going all the way back to the 1750s. I believe that it's, for me, I feel called personally to tell that history, to uncover those stories, and to also work on modern day transactions and to preserve the records for the future, the records of our modern day for the future, just as I have preserved those records. My predecessors have preserved those records from our past.
Thank you. Ms. Rich, you have 1.5 minutes.
Yes, thank you for the question. I think it's time for some young people to be in the General Assembly. So I am thrilled that both Jonah Garson and Alan Boyncy have put their names in. We need those young faces and next generation there to fight for us. And they've got good eyes, they've got good ears, they know what they're doing. So I'm excited for them. And that's one of the reasons that I would not have run for that, because I do believe young people are the future and they need to get in there. But the Register of Deeds is different. So, leaders need to step up in the face of devastation and not step away. When I heard from folks during the pandemic that they had to go to other counties to get their marriage certificates, it broke my heart. They could not get into our Register of Deeds. People that were born and raised in Orange County had to go to Alamance and Chatham County to get just a basic marriage license. And this is just wrong. And so I want to also create the next generation of an office, improve the technology, our archive system, digitize all our records, and create a space that the community and people really value. That's what's important to me, and that's what's important to the residents of Orange County.
Thank you. The next question is, many wonder why this office is an elective office. Some even suggest that it should be a full-time county government position, subject to the merit system. What are the pros and cons of this? Ms. Rich, you have 1 minute.
So as I knock on doors, that is the number one question that people ask me all the time. Why is this an elected position? It goes back, it was written into the Constitution back in the 1860s, and I believe that it has a lot to do with land use and making sure that our African American community at the time didn't have the ability to be able to purchase land and have land. And so there are a couple of positions that are in the county that have become elected positions. One of them, of course, is Register of Deeds, the Sheriff's Office, and the county clerk. So yeah, it is a great question, and I believe it's all about history.
Okay, Mr. Chilton, you have 1 minute.
I would agree with what Penny said. This being an elected office is a sort of historical artifact from Reconstruction era. I don't know that there's necessarily a good reason for it to be an elected office. That's just how it is. Although it's not written into our state constitution. It's written into our state statutes that it is. And I want to take a moment to say that I think in the answer to the previous question, you heard a lot of smoke being blown. During the pandemic, my office issued over 3,000 marriage licenses. That's a fact.
Okay. Now, the next question. During the COVID epidemic, you both held county-wide office. What did you learn from that experience that will make you a better county official? Starting with you, Mr. Chilton. 1 minute.
I think for the first couple of weeks of the mandated shutdown of Orange County offices, we were working on devising a safe protocol for issuing marriage licenses. I think one of the things I learned is that could have been faster. How we approached that. There was a 21-day period when we were not issuing marriage licenses, but all the rest of our services were available online before COVID, during COVID, and are available online now. I think Ms. Rich's rhetoric has tried to lead people to believe that there was a much longer period of time when marriage licenses weren't available. And I'll also point out that it was her leadership that caused us to be so cautious in protecting the public and protecting our employees. And I'm surprised to hear now that she's of a different opinion than she was at the time. She's proud of her work on leadership on COVID, and she's supposedly concerned about these issues. However, never during COVID epidemic did she in any way raise any of these issues. Only now does she find it convenient to bring these attacks.
Well, Ms. Rich, you have 1 minute.
I would like to claim a little extra time since my opponent got some extra time on that question. I was indeed the person that closed the offices down, but as we all know, there were 5 offices that were created by the governor, and he demanded that they remain open because they were essential parts of business. The Register of Deeds was one of them, along with the Health Department, the Sheriff's Office, EMT, and the courts. So the governor overrode what my decision was to close the office, and so that office had to remain open and had to function. So what I learned during—
It was open, Penny.
Excuse me, it's not your turn. It's not your turn. Please don't speak when I am. What I've learned from this is that in leading this response was that you did need to be resilient. You learned how to needed to learn how to redo things. And as well as the Office of Register of Deeds, all the essential parts of the government had to learn how to be resilient and redo things. I learned how to work with every single essential governmental office. I worked hand in hand with the Health Department, and this is where I learned how hard it was to get things done at the Register of Deeds office, and why the software was ancient and not working. I mean, unfortunately, we did have deaths in Orange County, and people did have to get death certificates. It took too long sometimes to get death certificates, and it was unfortunate that in a time of need and time of such confusion that we couldn't figure out how to run things more smoothly.
All right, the next question. What can Orange County government do to make the Office of Register of Deeds operation more efficient and effective? Ms. Rich.
I believe that comes to me first. So this is part of my vision to create the next generation of Register of Deeds office. I mean, the technology is a huge part of it. We are using old technology. And as I talk to Register of Deeds across the state, I understand that they are continually updating their technology. As a matter of fact, Wake is now looking to change their technology completely. So improving the archival system. I mean, we do have some issues with that. Everything is not digitized. We want to make sure that that happens.
That's false.
And we want to create a space. Mark, please, I don't do this to you. Don't interrupt me. Thank you. I would like to create a space that is valued by community resources, by our community, and engage with the public on a regular basis to make sure that we're providing what is needed for our government office. We pay a lot of taxes in Orange County, and we need to work. Our governmental offices have to work for us, and they have to live up to the expectations that Orange County residents expect.
Thank you, Ms. Rich. Mr. Chilton, you have 1 minute.
Our software system is about 3 years old. It's very new. It replaced an antiquated system, and it has been described in glowing terms by real estate attorneys, realtors, and paralegals who need to use it. Penny, I'm sorry that I had to interrupt you, but there were a number of things you said that are simply not factual. That is not an antiquated system. It's a brand new system. It's an excellent system, and one that the local real estate community loves to use. It costs money to replace that system. You have proposed to hire additional staff, where I have been holding the line on and reducing the amount of staff because of the excellent and efficient software that we have in place. You say our taxes are high in this county. Well, they are lower because of me and because of the way I've run this office. We've taken net revenues returned to the county from $500,000 a year up to $1.25 million by reducing the amount of staff through retirements.
Okay, the fourth and final question. What in your personal, professional, and political backgrounds uniquely qualifies you to hold this office? Starting with you, Mr. Chilton. You have 1 minute.
I am a 1997 cum laude graduate of North Carolina Central University. I worked after that for 17 years in the field of real estate law. I have served 8 years as the Register of Deeds for Orange County. I am an expert on the history of our community, and I'm familiar with all the types of documents that we handle, from negative easements to deeds of trust to deeds to UCC1 filings. I know all of those things. I've drafted almost all of those kinds of documents, and I've worked with all of them before I took office and now that I am in office. I am an expert on real estate law matters, and that is what I bring to the table, and that is how I am helping to prevent real estate fraud in our community.
Thank you. Ms. Rich, you have 1 minute.
Yes, thank you. So, like I said, I have over 20 years of experience in local government. And as a county commissioner, if you want to be a good county commissioner, what you have to do is engage with every part and every department of our government. And that's what I've done over the past 8 years. I've been on more than 18 different committees, understanding how to make policy decisions based on how our government works. This is really important to me. You need to spend time and you need to be present. And this is what we need at the Register of Deeds office. We need someone that is going to be there and be present. I pledge to do that, whether it be in the office, outside the office, out in the public, and I particularly want to involve our community in some of the decision-making processes that go on in the Register of Deeds office. Currently, I don't think that happens, and I think that we could do a much better job involving personally the people that use the Register of Deeds office every single day.
Thank you. Now you each have 2 minutes for your closing statement. Please include in your remarks both your qualifications for office and the reasons we should vote for you. Starting with you, Ms. Rich, you have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I apologize for my opponent for talking over me. That's something that women always have to deal with, and it shouldn't be happening at a forum. The Register of Deeds is a really important job in the county. It's based on two principles. It's service and stewardship, and it's in accordance with the North Carolina State Statute. I've been serving our Orange County community for over 20 years in many capacities. As an elected official, my priority has always been to take a deep dive into each department, to gain knowledge, and to understand the different components that complete our local government. It was true when I was on the OWASA board, the Chapel Hill Town Council, and of course, as a county commissioner. I have a master's degree in communications technology, and it's a really good fit for the Register of Deeds office, as this is a service and stewardship position. My skill set includes managing staff, exploring new technology and tools to modernize and update procedures, and creating an equitable space where the staff is empowered to perform their duties and provide top-rate customer service. I led our county through the COVID response, one of the most challenging times that we have ever faced. My leadership, collaboration, and dedication to our county got us past the height of the pandemic, and I was recognized by my peers, colleagues with 3 awards, one from Governor Cooper himself. Finally, I think it's important to recognize that visiting an official government office to handle important business is stressful. As the Register of Deeds, I will strive to make this office as simple to use as possible, remain open during lunch, processing paperwork all the way through 5 p.m., and simplifying the Register of Deeds online interface and website, all changes that I will make to ensure that the Register of Deeds office is as seamless and stress-free as possible for anyone who walks through our doors. Because positive change comes from being present and involved, I will continue to build public-private partnerships to help serve our residents better. You can see more on my website, pennyrichfororange.com. I'm happy to take any additional questions. I hope I gain your support. Please vote on the 17th, if not before. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank both of you for joining us. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I omit Mr. Chilson? Yes, I did. Mr. Chilton.
Yes, thank you. First of all, Penny, I apologize for if I spoke over you at some point there. I made a brief comment, and I apologize. I shouldn't have interrupted you. I think what I would say is that unlike my opponent, I have extensive experience as a real estate professional. I too have served in many offices for many years as mayor of Carrboro, on the Chapel Hill Town Council, and on the Carrboro Board of Aldermen. But those are not the type of experience that make me qualified to do this job. Those are part-time legislative bodies that meet at night. This is a full-time job that requires a background in professional real estate law. And I have an extensive background in that area. I'm proud of the services that we provide at our office. We provided them all through the pandemic, apart from a 21-day period when we were working on safe protocols for marriage licenses. Penny, you say that you reached out to and worked with all of the departments, and yet you have all these complaints now that you didn't express to me at the time. So I guess you didn't reach out to all of the departments, because you certainly didn't reach out to mine to tell us about any concerns that you supposedly had. But in any case, I'm proud of the work that my team does. We do it very efficiently. We are open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day, and we provide our services all through lunch, despite what Penny claims. I have an excellent team. We have 2 attorneys on staff. We have native speaker of Spanish, and we have speakers of 4 other languages who work in our office to serve the people of Orange County. It's a friendly and welcoming place, and most people who come are not there for more than 20 minutes, no matter the service they're seeking. I ask for your vote in May. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank both of you. We appreciate your willingness to serve our community.
Thank you so much. Enjoy dinner, everyone.
Just a reminder to Carol Woods residents, early voting begins on April 28th at the Seymour Center and other locations. Check the elections bulletin board next to the computer room for specifics. In-person voting will take place in our social lounge May 17th from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Please vote.
Have a great evening, all. Thanks for having me on.